Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here today. Glad to see so many faces. My name is Viktor Vasyukov. I'm an expert business analyst in DataArt. My overall experience in IT is somehow more than 20 years, I believe. And currently, I work as a part of our financial practice with some of my focus, especially on our insurance projects. As DataArt as a company, we have a pretty wide experience with different parts of insurance, and from all of those beautiful clients, we had a chance to look into and touch the area of insurance from different sides. And the piece I brought to discuss today is related to core systems of insurance companies, boring stuff, let's say it honestly, and problems related to their modernization. The reason I find this topic worth talking about a little, because from what I see very often, it's, as I said, it's kind of boring stuff. It gets overlooked, it's somewhere hidden in the dark under the surface, but at the same time, it's worth recognizing that that is just a very strong foundation which defines and sometimes hinders ability of insurance company to grow and innovate. So today I'm going to talk a little about the functions. So what are core insurance systems, what they are. Some problems with the current state of legacy systems around the business. Challenges which you might face if you get into endeavor of modernization of such systems, and some thoughts, let's say, about that, which could be called sort of lessons learned. So let's dive into that. First thing to start with, I'd like to ask you a question, and just to avoid the feeling of deja vu, it's a different question than another Viktor asked in his presentation a bit earlier. He asked you from point of view of a customer, like if you're buying insurance, what do you buy it for? Now let's put yourself to the opposite side of the mirror. Let's imagine that you are thinking of doing insurance business, and let's put it to the simplest terms. Let's strip it from all the processes, technology, and that stuff. In a very, very simple words, how would you say what is insurance about? Your versions. Come again? Profit. Okay, let's put it differently. What would you be doing? What will you need to do if you'd like to do insurance business? Good things. Okay, thanks for inputs. What I actually had in mind, and again, I told you up front, it's going to be boring stuff, not sexy, far from client-facing piece. Simply saying, if we put it to the very, very barest simplification, we could try to say that insurance is about selling insurance policies and then paying out claims when corresponding covered events or accidents do happen, hopefully for some reasonable ratio of policy sold in order to stay profitable. And around these things, certain very specialized insurance pieces of knowledge, if we take insurance kind of people, which are in that industry, areas of knowledge they swim into, they swim in let's say, underwriting, and putting it simply, that's making a decision, looking at the risk and deciding whether you are ready to cover that or not. Maybe you have a rule that, okay, we are, by no conditions, we're going to insure houses which have pools, which do not have fence around it. Too much risk of someone falling there, suing owner. No. That's best fit for us. That maybe we can take it, but there will be some certain exclusions or additional conditions which might be performed and met to do that. And then rating, pricing, I'd say one of the main grounds where different insurance companies compete with each other. Because that's a sort of educated guessing piece when based on different risk characteristics, classifications, data, you need to determine the right price, balance of the right price to that, not too high, because otherwise you're not competitive, clients will buy from someone else, not too low, because in this case, you put yourself at risk of paying out in claims more than you earn in premiums. And all of that stuff needs to be put together and combined on policy lifecycle transactions. And if we remember that the topic is about core systems, So those are the place where it all becomes live. When it happens, well, all of those pieces of logic, rating, underwriting, rules, different sorts of document templates, billing plans, they all live. That is a system of record where the company has information of all the policies they've written, sold, and whatever happens refers to that data based on that, and processing all that stuff. I'm not going to dive into some deeper details, technical of those. If anyone is interested in such ones, I'll be happy to connect afterwards, or I dropped a couple links to articles on our site. Feel free to explore that. So moving on, a couple of words about what modern policy administration systems, what they look like. So I'd say in modern ones, there's sort of natural separation between the platform provided by well-established vendors, market solutions, which provide main routine functionality and provide sort of framework which then different businesses use to put their unique and custom business logic, their rules, their rates, calculation chains, and all that stuff. And that's a place, that's the area, when the majority of complexity and work, when you need to deal with implementing a policy administration system, main work happens there. So those were a couple of words of what we're talking about, the systems themselves. Now talking about the problems. Of course, in industries there are the ones in front of others, there are innovators, but at the same time, sort of surprisingly for us, as we uncovered, lots of insurance companies, and insurance is pretty conservative industry, we'll need to admit. So enormous amount of existing insurance businesses still use very outdated legacy systems with typical problems like scalability, hard time when you need to do some new integrations, etc. And all of that could be okay as long as business continues to operate as they are. They can have stable book of business, client base, they are fine. They face problem when they need to make the next big step. So if they're thinking about growth, introducing new product lines, rethinking the existing products based on their better understanding of the needs of that segment of the clients or locations. Ability to innovate, to respond to popular demands like data-driven decision-making, personalization, operational effectiveness, and all of that. And the typical pattern is that business finds that they cannot pursue such interesting and demanding things before they put their foundation at the proper state. And that's the moment when sometimes a project or initiative to perform some sort of modernization to replace what they have in their basement with some better stuff where it starts and takes place. Now, if you find yourself in such kind of project or in front of such project at its beginning, what kind of challenges and problems you might face and worth having in mind in order to try to survive there? I'd say there are basically two categories, sources from where complexity comes. One of them related to domain itself of creating insurance product configuration. One small comment. When I'm saying words product configuration, I mean insurance products, which means coverages, limits in the sense that typical business speaks, not digital products. And another source that we are not just building it from scratch, but we're talking about doing a replacement, and not replacement of any system, but the core one. So, looking into those. If we talk about problems of need to implement product configuration for some insurance businesses, one specific is you will need to deal with very high concentration of meaningful business knowledge on a square inch. Like the platform has taken all the routine and standard stuff from you, so what you deal with, the essence, the rules, rates, logic, all that stuff, and any words has a huge amount of ripples and effects on different processes and other participants. And that knowledge is typically very loosely documented and not structured as good as we as engineering people would like it to be. Each platform has its own specifics and limitations, so you will need to accommodate yourself with those. You will need to learn how to squeeze that business logic into that particular platform chosen by the business. And the topic of product configurations for insurance companies, that's a rabbit hole in itself. There are deeper, more interesting topics, which also I'm not going to spend our time right now. If you're interested, you can find some thoughts about it in the articles I shared, the links. Now, if we turn to the part with the related to replacement of the systems, so you most probably will need to deal with extracting business knowledge, current business knowledge, which this business lived with for many years, from the existing systems. Reverse engineering, analyzing historical data, if you're able to, if you have access, that might be one of your best friends, because stakeholders do lie. Maybe they do not realize that they lie and all that stuff, so you'll need to put it all together and find the truth in that. And another thing, you probably will have a very hard time separating true business needs and real requirements from just historical habits. They used to do it this way. And some of those could even have emerged from some weird and ugly limitations of their old systems. And it's all mixed up in the understanding of the business there as is state. That's how they live. They will need to separate it. Specific of platforms, yes, and now we have even two. We have specifics of old platforms, specific of new platforms. They might be different, gaps between those, lots of fun. And of course, data migration, a huge topic in itself, which could take as much effort as the whole other part of it. So let's not even stay on details of that. But what I'd like to say next, so I hope I could persuade you that it's a scary part if you're facing need to engage in such and you didn't have chance to run away. That's it. So what could be some thoughts, piece of advice, which I would try to give you to have in mind entering such grounds to increase your chances for getting success there. And I'd like to put aside from the very start common knowledge such as, of course, more industry expertise, experience with similar project, general engineering techniques, practice, expertise. The more you have of that, you are better prepared. But as I said, I perceive that as a common knowledge, so it's not a part of lessons learned. It's obvious. Apart from that, some thoughts are. First thing, I'd say it's very important to recognize that replacement of core systems is never a simply technical project. It will inevitably be very complex business modernization and transformation with very big blast radius on all parts of business. And recognizing that, you should enter such engagement as such and be prepared and ask yourself the question, do we have right people to do that? Do we have right expertise? Maybe reconsider before diving into delivery part, but keep that in mind. In my opinion, one of critical success factors is ability to put significant weight and stick to very strong vision where you're not going and asking business like, we're simply technical people, let's ask business what to do, they'll tell, we'll do some clarification, refinement, but then we'll do what they're told. Won't work. So you'll need to own and stick to very strong vision and very aggressive prioritization and, let's say, MVP approach. Some pieces of the business will need to be pushed to the zone when they will be sort of uncomfortable doing the things they need to do. That's it. It needs to be done like that. Notion of feature parity should be pushed back from the very start, just day zero. And another thought from our experience, I would recommend strongly looking for and leveraging all the possible trade-offs, shortcuts, and workarounds as a way to do something simpler that it could be taken with our engineering mindset. Believe me, even after you find lots of those, the remaining scope and complexity will still be huge, so it's not a laziness, it's a must-have. And a couple examples of what I probably refer to by those. One of them, let's say, you're dealing with a part of logic, some rules inside of all those layers, which result in, as an example, let's say generation of some invoices for the policy. Something happened to the policy, some changes, new business, endorsement, whatever. And then the part needs to apply and having different options for installment plans, single payment, multiple payments, or any changes in between. It needs to produce what changes in the invoice policy has. And problems with such things that you very quickly start to face enormous, if not infinite amount of possible combinations, scenarios, and all that stuff. By the book, engineering approach says that there shouldn't be any undefined scenarios. We shouldn't miss any corner cases. We need to write all of them down, specify what exactly needs to happen in each of those, verify them, then make sure that it's built accordingly. It's formally correct, but it might be not an optimal approach in some conditions. An alternative mindset, and I borrowed the idea from some talks on integration, let's say, solutions. The idea, I believe, from Maxim Tsepkov some years ago was a good integration solution is not the one in which errors cannot happen. Good integration solution is the one when you have clear means of noticing them and resolving when they happen, and they will happen inevitably. So suggested approach is first admit there will be scenarios anyway, which will produce some ugly outputs. Maybe some rare, maybe hard to reproduce, not sure if those are viable, but there should be cases when, let's say for some client policies, some weird invoices get generated, combination. And recommendation is to start with, before diving into specific scenarios, debugging, how could that happen, start with the question, when such crap happens, what would be the ways for the business to resolve it to the normal state? You look into built-in platform functionality. You can think of maybe doing some tweaks to your custom product configuration to emulate doing corrections. Maybe there could be something like last resort, what we learned from some of our clients, it worked for them. They said, okay, anyway, our customer-facing people, if they see policy with obviously off data, and we do not understand how to put it right quickly and in a nice way, okay, anyway, we can always cancel that policy and issue a new one with the same number just to bring the data to the normal state. That could be an option. Another example is data migration. As I said, it's the heaviest piece, and I'd prefer to skip going into attributes, details of why and what it entails. Let me go to the question. Can you think of any ideas? What could be a sort of shortcut here for data migration between existing policy administration system and the new one we're introducing? Any ideas? Okay. Sorry, could you repeat?
Quality of data and availability of data. Well, actually, most of the time we don't know about source of truth. We think we know, but actually not.
Thanks, that's a good point. And getting back to what I had. What could be an alternative to doing a hard way, real data migration from one system to another? What we could leverage here is the cyclic nature of the business. If we're talking about property and casualty insurance, typically, the most policies, they have term no longer than a year. It means that no longer than in a year, all the policies in old system are going to expire. And what could be done in this way? Do some by process workaround. We just let the policies expire where they are. We'll communicate with the client, yes, do all that dance about policy renewal, but once they sign the papers, they make the payment, we do not do renewal in old system. We'll just let that policy expire there, and we'll create a new system with some small tweaks to make the clients feel that the price and all that stuff, they are not for the first year with the company. It worked for the clients, so that could be an option worth having in mind. And since I believe we're nearly out of time, I'd like to shortly sum up a couple ideas I wanted to share with you today. So the first, core insurance systems, despite being probably the most boring stuff in this area, those are foundation which defines and can significantly hinder ability of business to grow and innovate. Key success and chance to survive in a project for replacement or modernization of such systems, if you ever get involved. Recognize complexity of huge business transformation from the very start and approach it as such. Put strong effort in having and sticking to very strong vision, pushing back wants of business significantly. And advice to master, look for opportunities of all the sorts of trade-offs, workarounds, because it might be your secret weapon to make a change on the landscape of what's happening and have your voice heard and get more credits from the business when you need to sit with them at the same table. I believe that was what I had in mind to share with you. Thank you all for listening. And now I'll be happy to answer any questions.